My sisters and brothers in Jesus Christ, today is the second Sunday of Lent. The readings remind us to listen attentively to the word, even if that obedience brings along sufferings and pain. The first reading from the book of Genesis brings to our consideration the sacrifice of Abraham at the Mount Moriah. The Gospel from St. Mark describes the transfiguration of Jesus at Mount Tabor in the presence of his 3 disciples. In their presence, Jesus transfigured. His clothes become dazzling white. Moses and Elijah appeared to him, and the voice from heaven, "This is my beloved Son, listen to him." The disciples were pleased with the divine presence, and they wanted to be there. But Jesus says, well, we need to go down to Jerusalem. Peter was not happy when Jesus talked about accomplishing his mission in Jerusalem by suffering and death. Maybe the transfigured glory, the voice of the Father, and the presence of Moses and Elijah, representing the law and the prophets, helped the disciples to accept Jesus as the fulfillment of all the promises and give up their worldly ambitions in following Jesus. This reading at the beginning of Lent helps us to move on with our Lenten journey of prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. Last Sunday we reflected on Jesus in the desert, alone with none but his Father, before his public ministry. Today we see him listening to his Father, that he is indeed the beloved Son. Being reassured, he climbs down the Mount Tabor and moves towards the Mount of Calvary. Most of us, like the disciples, want only to be at the Mount Tabor, but not willing to climb the Mount of Calvary. This tells us why sometimes we question the very goodness of God, faced with sufferings and pains, difficulties in life, and at times question why there is these natural calamities, wars and violence in our time. St. Francis de Sales, in a spiritual classic, a treatise on the love of God, speaks of 2 mountains that we should love in our lives: the Mount Tabor and Mount Calvary. He calls Calvary the Mount of Lovers. On Calvary, love is refined by sacrifice. My sisters and brothers, when you are burdened by the sufferings and pain, look at the cross. Ask yourself, why should this man Jesus die? He responds, stretching out his hands on the cross, "See how much I love you." Friends, now I come to the second part of my homily. It is more about your generosity and how much the Missionaries of St. Francis de Sales are indebted to this parish community for your generosity to our missionary work all over the world. Today we have a second collection for completing the priest's home we are building in India. In this regard, I would like to thank Very Reverend Father Jesse, our pastor, other clergy, parish staff, and each one of you for making this possible. Last 2 years, we had taken a second collection each, and they were very good. And many of our priests in India admire the generous way you are helping us. I came back from my holidays by the end of January. Besides meeting my family members and friends, one of my goals was to visit the priest's home under construction and to meet with the provincial superior and those priests entrusted with the supervision of the construction work. The work is progressing very well. By the end of last December, the ground floor was slabbed and pillars to the first floor was almost complete. By the end of this month, the first floor also will be slabbed. By the end of December 2024, the construction will be over. Father Provincial says the blessings will be in January, probably around the feast of St. Francis de Sales. Our priest's home is named Eden Nivas. Nivas in Indian languages would mean home or house. It can accommodate 32 retired priests. Each suite has an office, bedroom, and a sit-out, and about 500 to 550 square feet area. There are 6 blocks of the building. 4 blocks are for the retired priests. 1 is administrative block, 1 with kitchen, refectory, and other common facilities, and a chapel with 100 seating. Now, a word about the cost estimate. Initially, it was budgeted for $1.6 million. Unfortunately, due to some unforeseen condition laid by the government to approve the plan, it is re-estimated for $1.8 million. And so far, the province has raised $1 million, and we need to raise more than $500,000 by the end of December. We trust in God's generosity. We trust in God and the generosity of each one of you. Remember, last year we had a wonderful second collection which fetched over $100,000. Please be generous in helping me and all the MSFS priests, and especially Fathers George Vatapara, Jason, and many who are working in the Archdiocese and many other parts of this vast country. We are about 80 Indian priests working all over America. Besides those missionaries, returning missionaries from Africa, and those working in Western Europe should be accommodated in this home in their retirement. So please be generous. At the second collection, for clarity's sake, 2 baskets are being served, and the first one is green. One is green and the other is red. The red one is meant for the missionaries of St. Francis de Sales, and the green is for the regular expenses in running this parish of ours. Well, I know if I go on speaking, I can speak for a day on this project, but the more I speak, less will be in the collection box. So I shall just say one point that the provincial lately informed me. He says, there exists a possibility of collecting fund, encouraging people, those who can afford, to sponsor a residence by themselves and memorialize it whichever way they want to, either an individual or a family, or two individuals and two families. If it is one family, one sponsor, then it would be costing around $20,000. And if it is two individuals, it will be $10,000 each. And probably, if you are doing that, you should let me know so that I can keep the name and let the provincial know about it. Already I have, I think, 3 individual sponsors. And few more will help this fundraising project very well. The rest, you can get more information about me, about this project from me personally, or by a telephone call, or by an email address to me. Once again, I do thank you for your appreciation, your loving support for me in my ministry here, as well as your generous contribution that helps the MSFS missionaries all over the world. And from our part, we can just pray for you, pray for your intention. Thank you, and God bless you.